Now the conversation moves towards the situation in Miami with Brian Flores and Tua. And Brady, you said something earlier that I jotted down because I did find it interesting, that the fan base is already kind of growing out of patience when it comes to Brian Flores as well, too. And look, I've been hearing for a couple of years, Brian Flores got him on the right path. He's got him on the right trajectory. He's going to be one of the Belichick disciples. It's going to seemingly make it work. Yet here we are. They're a bad football team. Period. They just lost to Jacksonville in London, and all of a sudden there's this rumor about a Deshaun Watson trade. Like, maybe this isn't Tua's fault. Maybe Tua's not the issue. I know they're banged up. I know they got injuries, but maybe Brian Flores needs to get a little bit more of the heat, and apparently, according to what you said earlier, that's starting to happen in South Florida.
Yeah, it's starting to happen, and I think a common thing you'll hear people say is, well, Tua's not the problem, but he's not the answer, right? Like that's like one of those things people will throw out there and say, which is pretty unfair. Well, no, I'm just saying if you look at like his actual, if you look at the film, he's a young player in this league still. How many starts does he even have at this point? I mean,
many.
I don't think at this point he's only started 3 games. Barely even got going in the second start of the season.
It's not a full season.
No, and that's what I'm saying is he hasn't even played a full rookie year yet, and yet we want to write him off completely.
12 starts in his NFL career.
And so at this point, I think he's got, 14 touchdown passes, like 7 interceptions, which a 2-to-1 ratio is pretty good. That'll put you in the Hall of Fame if you continue that and you start winning some football games and win a Super Bowl and all that. But there's a lot of things going on with this team. All right, their offensive line play hasn't been great. They have not been able to run the football consistently or effectively over the past 2 years. Their defense has regressed. No one's going to debate that. They are awful this year, which is where I think some of the impatience comes from. But when you combine, like, if you, for example, have an issue with Tua, if there's a lack of that maturation process, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Brian Flores last year, and the way he jerked Tua in and out of the lineup, and you didn't give him the chance to go finish games. You put Ryan Fitzpatrick there instead. And this might sound like a hot take, but if Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing for the Washington football team, I actually think it would be more helpful for a lot of the people who aren't a Tua fan, because they would have realized, like, oh, it's not like he's going to Washington football and lighting it up. Like that, like he wasn't the answer here, he's not the answer there. Like maybe it's just more of a team thing. And so I think, people are getting frustrated with the lack of defense, the scheme staying the same, playing man-to-man coverage where you've got bad matchups everywhere. They get frustrated with probably the Tua situation and injuries, because that was the biggest concern coming into the league. Now it's been a concern since he's, been the starter, in particular this year, even though he's played okay. So all the way around, it's just tough when you go and you're able to be a double-digit win team, go to the playoffs, and then the next year you're anything close to that. It's frustrating. So I think there's a lot of people in this fan base who are now starting to second-guess everything that he's done from last year with Tua to this year with the defense, some of the roster moves and decisions, and they're starting to really bring out a microscope to take a look at all this.
Yeah, I think the 2 wins is what you have to really focus on in 2020 because if you really think about it, I mean, I guess it isn't that long ago before then. I mean, they had 3 seasons prior to that where they were very, very below average teams, and then the year before that, in 2000, I want to say 16, they had a 10-win season as well. With Flores being in and at the head of the helm, once you've had a little bit of time, and once you are getting reviews on how well you're doing in terms of acquisition of good personnel, and you put together a 10-win season, you are now on the clock. You're on the clock, and there's no way around that. Once you post a double-digit win season as the head coach, and you've come in, that means you put your imprint on it. That's your DNA on it. So now, whether again, the reason why I said when you said, well, he might not be the answer, but he ain't the problem, or what, I don't know exactly how you said it, but I think the idea of it is that whether Tua is the problem or not, it still turns out to be collateral damage if Flores cannot do better than what he's doing right now. And that puts him on the hot seat, but it also puts Tua in a situation that even if he gets a reprieve, like, okay, he's only started so many games, X amount of games. He's still young. There are still things that you could try to salvage out of it. Is the next guy going to want to do that? You're now in the game of roulette that most pro athletes find themselves in, which is, how will this translate if this doesn't work out with Flores? So if it's not working out with Flores and he's trying to land on a short landing strip, how does that work for Tua? We're seeing how that's working out for Tua right now. But if it does end up where Flores coaches himself out of the position, then how does that play out for Tua? I just feel like where he's at, he's in a familiar place that most players are in, where it's you're up. It's up to chance in a lot of times.
You know what's crazy about last year when you talk about yanking Tua out of the game? So the first, he did it in Denver. And, Ryan Fitzpatrick came in, threw an interception to end the game in the end zone. So Tua's on the road. It's really like his first hostile road environment, and Flores pulls him out and puts Ryan Fitzpatrick in. And then he does it again on the Sunday night game against the Raiders, and that was the one in which Arden Key basically decapitated Ryan Fitzpatrick and got called for a personal foul. So they won that game, but it was because of a personal foul. So really, you needed an egregious penalty to win that game, and then you threw an interception in the end zone. So it's not like both those decisions to pull Tua and put in Ryan Fitzpatrick worked. You were bailed out on one, and you lost the other game. Here's the part that I heard. That he was planning, he would have done it again in Week 17. You remember, if they won, they would have gotten in, and they were at Buffalo Week 17, Miami. And if they won the game, they would have gotten into the playoffs. The only reason he couldn't do it that game is because Ryan Fitzpatrick was on the COVID list. Otherwise, he was planning, had it been the same situation and Fitzpatrick been available, Brady, he would have done it a third time. He would have pulled Tua from a game for a third time on the road in the same season. How the hell does anybody think that's going to do anything to a guy's confidence heading into, especially this year, and all the injuries he dealt with at Alabama? It's mind-boggling to me how Flores has handled this.
Confidence is one thing, and it's a delicate thing. And obviously, you see players who, when that's taken away from them early, and think about Jared Goff, for example, when he was there with Jeff Fisher. He had no confidence. After the way he looked in preseason his rookie year and during that season, he had zero confidence. And Sean McVay talked about trying to building back up his confidence, doing some things offensively to help him. That led to him playing great, getting them to, a Super Bowl. Mind you, there may be some controversy to get there, but I digress. He got him a second contract. Now, things ultimately didn't work out in the end. There's a lot of things that I think you could point to. But the point of the matter is, look at the difference between what he was like initially and then what Sean McVay could do with him. And that's the brilliance of McVay, but it's also the brilliance of McVay as a coach and understanding what he needed to do to help Jared Goff play his best football, which with Sean McVay, you could say schematically, but I also think it's a, confidence thing was one of the reasons why he was able to play so well for that period of time. So it's a delicate thing. It's something that coaches have to be cognizant of or aware of. And I just think from the evaluation standpoint, how the hell do you know if you've got your guy unless you let him play in those moments, those critical situations? Or even more than that, as a quarterback, I always felt like, and maybe this even applies to baseball, and one of the things I hate about the analytics and pitching with bullpens, et cetera, is let me get out of this. Let me get out of the jam. If I play crappy in the first half, let me come back in the second half. Get me the ball back. You want to see that from him. You don't want him to be just, some dog that's walking around with his tail in between his legs. So that's the other thing, is you don't get to see those moments from him or see how much grit or see how much determination he has if you just pull him from those scenarios. I think that was one of the biggest detriments to his growth last year as a rookie.